Welcome back for another deep dive with us.
Always a pleasure.
Today we're diving into a case that I think a lot of our listeners might already be familiar with,
Hmm.
but let's see. I guess the best way to put it is that there's just so much to unpack with the
Yeah,
disappearance of Aaron Corwin.
absolutely.
So it's June 29th, 2014,
Okay.
and it's a Sunday.
Mm.
A seemingly ordinary Sunday at the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center in 29 Palms, California.
Right.
And things take a really dark turn when Erin's family receives a call that she has just vanished.
Yeah, this case is so interesting because it's Joshua Tree National Park where she supposedly disappeared.
Right. And Joshua Tree is just this vast and rugged landscape,
Absolutely.
and it can be really dangerous, especially in June.
Oh, yeah. The heat alone can be deadly.
So we have this young woman who vanishes in a place that's beautiful, but also incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to try to sort out today. Trying to put those pieces together and figure out, what led up to her disappearance and really understand the investigation that followed.
Right.
We're going to be looking at news reports, court documents, and even some interviews with people close to the case
Wow.
to get a clearer picture of what might have happened.
The fact that NCIS was brought in, it wasn't a simple missing persons case.
Yeah.
There's something more there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So let's start with Erin herself.
Okay.
Who was she before all of this happened?
Well, Erin was 19 years old when she disappeared,
Okay.
and she was, by all accounts, a very quiet and sheltered young woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she really loved animals, especially horses.
Okay.
Her love for horses is the theme that kind of comes up again and again in her story.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What about her background?
Okay, so she was from Oak Ridge, Tennessee,
Okay.
which is a place with the very unique history.
Okay.
It's actually nicknamed the Atomic City.
What?
Yeah, because it was built in secret during World War II
Right.
as part of the Manhattan Project.
Oh, wow. So it was like a really insular community.
Very much so. Yeah, it was almost like living on a basic self.
That's a really interesting parallel,
Yeah,
going from one kind of enclosed environment
And-
to another.
exactly.
So what was her life like once she got to 29 Palms?
Well, 29 Palms is massive.
Oh, yeah.
It's sprawling, and it can be very isolating for a lot of people.
Especially someone so young.
Yeah, and so far from her family.
Right.
Seems like she struggled with that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you think that isolation played a role in her disappearance?
Well, to answer that, we need to talk about her relationship with her husband, John Corwin.
Okay.
They had what a lot of people would call a whirlwind romance.
Okay.
They met at a horse ranch in Tennessee, married young, and then moved to California right before John's deployment.
Wow. So they moved pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
Was there more to it than just young love?
Well, it seems like there were definitely some practical considerations at play.
Okay.
Getting married allowed them to get base housing,
Right.
and John was eager to start his military journey with Erin by his side.
Okay, but then it makes you wonder how strong their connection actually was.
Right.
What kind of person was John?
People who knew John described him as stoic, unemotional,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even distant.
Okay.
It made it really difficult to kind of gauge his true feelings about Erin's disappearance, especially when certain details about his behavior came to light.
What kind of behavior are we talking about?
Well, for starters, he didn't report her missing right away.
Oh,
Yeah, he waited a full 24 hours before contacting the authorities.
that's a long time.
It is.
What was his explanation for that?
He said that he thought you had to wait 24 hours before you could file a missing person report.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what about his alibi for when Erin disappeared?
Well, he said he was at home playing video games all day, but investigators found some inconsistencies in his story.
Okay, so we've got a young, sheltered woman who disappears in a really treacherous national park.
Right.
Her husband, who seems detached, delays reporting her missing, and his alibi doesn't really add up.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like we've got ourselves a real mystery.
It does, but before we get ahead of ourselves, we need to take a closer look at Erin's life on base,
Okay.
specifically her connection to a place called the White Rock Horse Rescue.
Oh,
And this is where things get really interesting.
I can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah.
But first, we're going to take a quick break.
Okay, sounds good.
You were saying that Erin's connection to this White Rock Horse Rescue, that's where things start to get really interesting.
Yeah, so White Rock, it was more than just a ranch.
Okay.
It was really a sanctuary for horses and people.
Huh.
And it was run by this woman named Isabel Megley.
Okay.
And Isabel, she was known for her sharp wit and her understanding of animals and people.
Interesting.
And Erin found solace there at the ranch spending hours with the horses,
Okay.
bonding with other horse enthusiasts.
So she found a sense of community there.
Exactly. A world away from the base, and perhaps even her marriage.
It sounds like she was looking for something that she wasn't getting elsewhere.
Definitely.
Did she make any close friends at the ranch?
Yeah, she did. She became close with this Marine couple, Nicole and Christopher Lee.
Okay.
And they shared her passion for horses, and they were a good support system for her.
That's good.
Yeah. And it's important because, Aaron confided in them
Okay.
and in Isabel about the tension in her marriage.
Oh, so this is bringing us back to John in the investigation.
Right.
Since his alibi wasn't adding up and his behavior was strange, they must have been looking into him more closely.
Yeah, they started by really digging into Aaron's life on base,
Okay.
talking to people, trying to understand her emotional state and her relationship with John.
And her relationship with John. Okay.
Yeah, and they looked into her social media activity
Oh, of course.
for clues about her whereabouts or any signs of trouble in her marriage.
Did they find anything?
They did, actually.
Really?
They found messages between Aaron and her family back in Tennessee. And in these messages, she talked about being really homesick
Oh.
and feeling isolated on base.
Oh, wow. So maybe things weren't as perfect as they seemed.
No, not at all.
Okay.
She also hinted at feeling suffocated in her relationship with John,
Oh.
expressing a desire for independence.
That's really sad.
It is.
Yeah. So the investigation was revealing these cracks in the facade.
Exactly. And as they looked deeper into John's life, they found even more holes in his story.
Okay, like what?
So remember he said he was home playing video games all day?
Right.
Well, NCIS decided to look into his gaming activity.
Oh, that's smart.
They looked at the logs.
Okay.
And what they found was that his activity was really sporadic,
Uh-huh.
with these long gaps
Hmm.
during the time that Aaron went missing.
Huh.
And when they asked him about it, he couldn't give a good explanation.
Okay, so that's suspicious. So where did they go from there?
Well, they got his phone records,
Okay.
and that's where they hit a major breakthrough. Yeah, his records showed that he'd been making a lot of calls to this one number,
Okay.
and it was a burner phone.
Oh, wow. Hold on. What's a burner phone?
It's a prepaid phone that can't be traced easily.
So why is that a big deal?
Well, they're often used in criminal activities because they provide anonymity.
Oh, so that's a huge red flag.
Right.
Did they figure out who the phone belonged to?
It did.
Yeah.
It was a woman John had met online.
So he was having an affair.
He was.
Wow. Okay, so we have a secret affair, a suspicious husband with a shaky alibi,
Right.
and a young wife who vanished in a massive desert.
Yeah, it's looking less and less like a missing person case.
Right, more like something much worse.
Exactly.
But they still had one big problem: nobody.
Exactly. And without a body, it was going to be hard to build a strong case against John.
So how did they find her?
Well, they had to use what they knew about John and his personality.
Okay.
And they figured that if he was involved, he probably chose a spot he knew, a place where he felt comfortable and thought he wouldn't be detected.
So they focused on places he had been before.
Exactly.
But how do you even begin to search an area that big?
It was a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
They used hundreds of personnel special equipment.
Wow.
Helicopters were searching from above,
Okay.
and they had teams on foot with cadaver dogs
Wow.
combing through those canyons and ravines.
It must have been so grueling.
It was, yeah, the heat, the vastness of the park, the pressure of time.
Mm-hmm.
It really wore on everyone.
And as the days turned into weeks, they must have been losing hope.
Yeah, the desert doesn't give up its secrets easily.
Right. But they couldn't give up.
No. They kept going. They had to believe that Aaron was out there somewhere.
This wasn't just about finding a body, was it?
No, it was about finding answers.
Justice for Aaron.
Exactly.
Every piece of evidence
Right.
brought them closer to the truth.
So understanding what happened to Aaron.
Last we left off, investigators were facing this massive challenge, trying to find Aaron in this just vast desert landscape.
Yeah. And they were using all the resources they had.
Yeah.
The desert really does hold on to its secrets.
It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Right.
But the haystack is hundreds of thousands of acres.
Exactly. And the pressure was really on at this point.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Aaron's family was desperate for answers. The media was all over it. And every day that passed made it less likely that they'd find her.
I can only imagine what the investigators were thinking.
Like-
They had a suspect, but nobody.
Yeah.
It must have been really frustrating.
It was. And they knew that without a body, it would be really difficult to prove anything in court.
So they needed something to break the case open.
Yeah, some kind of lead that would take them directly to Aaron.
Did they get it?
Well, they decided to try something risky, something that's used sometimes in these kinds of investigations.
What did they do?
They leaked some information to the media.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of information?
Just enough to make it seem like they were zeroing in on a specific search area.
Wow, so they were trying to rattle John.
Yeah, hoping he'd panic and make a mistake.
Did it work?
It did.
Mm.
John thought they were closing in on him,
Okay.
and he got scared.
What did he do?
He called his girlfriend.
The one he was having an affair with.
Yeah, he wanted to meet her,
Okay.
and he ended up confessing to killing Aaron.
Oh, wow. He just came right out and said it.
He did. He was desperate.
And he told her where he hid the body.
He did.
Wow, that's incredible.
It really is. I mean,
You think you know someone,
right.
and then it turns out they're capable of something like this.
And his girlfriend, she was horrified,
Yeah.
but she did the right thing.
She went to the police.
She did.
Wow. That must have been a really tough decision.
Yeah, incredibly brave of her.
So the investigators finally had what they needed.
They did.
They had John's confession, and they knew where to find Erin.
Mm-hmm.
Did they find her remains where he said they'd be?
Yeah, they searched the area John had described,
Okay.
and they found her at the bottom of a dry well.
Oh, wow.
It was a sad ending.
Yeah.
But at least it brought some closure to her loved ones.
So what happened to John?
He was arrested and charged with murder.
Okay.
And when faced with all that evidence, he pleaded guilty.
To avoid a trial?
Right.
And what was his sentence?
Life in prison without parole.
Wow. It's hard to imagine what Erin went through,
Yeah.
but at least her family got some justice.
They did.
This deep dive has been a wild ride.
Yeah.
From the initial mystery to the shocking betrayal,
Right.
and finally the discovery of Erin's remains.
It really makes you think,
It does.
about how things aren't always what they seem.
It's a reminder that darkness can be lurking anywhere.
Absolutely.
But it's also a testament to the power of perseverance and doing the right thing.
Right.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the disappearance of Erin Corwin.
Of course.
We'll see you next time.